At the back of my studio, behind this door, is something special. A space where stories aren't just told, they're lived. Welcome to Finicky Ricks, the ultimate guide to crafting spaces that don't just tell stories, they immerse you in them. Alright folks, today we're taking a closer look at G.I.L, our creepy yet lovable undead gaming companion. Before we dive into the repair work, let's go over what G.I.L's made of. Starting at the top, G.I.L's head is an animatronic skull from Dax Nightmares, based in Melbourne, Australia. It's a fantastic piece, and has held up remarkably well given how much use it gets. Dak did an excellent job finishing it, capturing the perfect vibe for the overall design. Since his face is the focal point of the gaming table, it's the most important part of this entire build. His left eye socket houses an older Polycom 1080p Eagle Eye mini camera, which provides remote players with a view of the table. It was a real challenge to find a camera that would fit into the skull, and while this one works, I'd love to upgrade it someday. Unfortunately, I've yet to find a suitable replacement. If anyone has any suggestions for a compact, high-quality camera that might work, let me know down in the comments. His basic body is built from one of those skeletons you find at big box stores during the Halloween season. It's fairly durable, but his spine had to be reinforced with a metal rod after it snapped under the weight I added to his head and upper torso. If I were to do it all over again, I'd disassemble the skeleton completely and reinforce it before adding anything else. Despite that, it's been a solid foundation for the rest of his design. The arrow sticking out of his chest isn't just for show. It's actually a microphone for his communication system. Inside his chest cavity, there's a surprising amount of stuff. USB hub, an extension cord, power brick, set of powered computer speakers. At least that's what I remember stuffing in there. I'll find out for sure when I open them up. The chainmail shirt, I found the cheapest one I could on Walmart.com. It was around $40 at the time, but that was a couple years ago, so it might cost a bit more now. I removed some of the rings to create holes and give it a tattered appearance. To give it a rusty aged look, I spray painted it with a red-brown primer, applied a burnt umber acrylic wash mixed with isopropyl alcohol, and then dry brushed it with some brighter orange-brown tones to make the armor look worthy of a mummy. His Norman-style nasal helm was a 3D printed file I found on Thingiverse. I used a cheap hog's hair bristle brush to stipple red Bondo glazing putty all over it for texture, gave it a light sanding, and painted it with the same techniques as the chainmail. For his knees, I 3D printed some patellas, since Halloween skeletons don't have them, to give them a more natural look. These were mounted using aluminum brackets I cut and shaped from scrap sheet metal. It's a small detail, but it really seems like a necessary addition to me. The corpsing, basically his skin, was done with liquid latex, facial tissues, and painted with acrylics. I spent probably too much time studying photos of real natural mummies to get the look right. My goal was to make him look realistic, but not outright disgusting. Now let's talk about what makes G.I.L move. Over the past 3 years, I've gone through 2 of the Dax control boards. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Dax boards, they're fantastic. But since Dak is on the other side of the world, I'm switching to Scary Terry sound control boards from Cowlicious Designs because it's much easier to obtain. If that doesn't meet my needs, I can always upgrade later to the AutoTalk 2 board from Blue Point Engineering. And that's the same tech used by Disney and Universal, so it's a solid fallback option. Since his right arm is broken at the shoulder joint, I'm taking this opportunity to install a servo so I can animate his right arm in the future. I think it would be cool if he could raise his hand or move his arm a bit while the player is speaking. I haven't decided exactly how I'll use it yet, but at least he'll be set up and ready for it. So that's the rundown on what makes G.I.L tick. Now let's take him apart, get to work on those repairs. So I marked out Gil's body where I need to cut portions of the skeleton to fit the servo into his shoulder. I've been careful to ensure the servo will align parallel to his breastbone, with the pivot point of the control arm centered on the original shoulder joint. I've also marked out the arm and will remove any excess material that might rub against the servo at the upper joint of his humerus to ensure it moves freely. Once I've checked the fit, I'll install a wooden box mount on the skeleton to provide a solid platform for the servo. Similarly, I need to create a platform for the new jaw movement speech control board inside his skull. I'm thinking a 1/2-inch plywood platform mounted at an angle on the existing bolt will work perfectly while still leaving enough clearance for the magnetic skull cap. I'll get these cuts done and craft the wooden pieces, and then I'll show you how everything fits together. I've cut the wooden mounting block to level out the hole I made in Gil's shoulder. I've also removed the piece from the humerus and plan to fill it with epoxy sculpt so the servo horn will fit into it just like this. As you can see, the servo fits neatly into the hole and the block supports the lower half, ensuring the servo sits level and has solid material to bolt to. Okay, it's been 24 hours and the epoxy sculpt is fully set. I've already mounted the servo control horn to Gil's upper arm using 1-inch 440 machine screws and filled the holes for the mounting nuts. I'll round off the sharp corners of the servo mounting block and paint it along with the portions of the humerus to blend with the rest of the skeleton. I've also finished the circuit board mounting platform for the skull, and I'll install it along with the control board itself. I had to upgrade the power pack for the Cowlicious servo control board from their recommended 1000 milliamps to a larger 5 amp brick. This then provided sufficient power for it to operate. That was an unexpected surprise, and it set me back a few days. Cowlicious boards are also quite finicky when it comes to adjusting the jaw movement. The minimum jaw position, the maximum jaw position, and the gain control potentiometers are extremely sensitive, requiring very precise, minute adjustments to get everything working correctly. Overall, I'm relatively happy with it, but it's something to keep in mind. They can be a bit tricky to dial in, so don't get frustrated if you go this route. It might just be because they're different from the DAX boards I'm used to. Once I get more familiar with how they operate, I think it'll be fine. With that said, I'm happy to report that Gil's finally finished. He's all put back together, and everything seems to be in working order. I've got it hooked up, so let's give him a test run. Gil connects our remote players to the table via Zoom. His speakers, the Aero microphone, and iCamera all connected through a USB hub with a 10-foot cord to the Surface tablet inset into my tabletop. This tablet controls most of the room systems. For those of you who've set up Zoom conferences, you know there's a speaker and microphone test sequence you can run when starting a session. I use this as a quick way to make sure everything is connected and functioning properly. Everything seems to be working fine. Let's see what one of our remote players has to say.
Looks like I'm back together, and just in time for the next game session. Not bad for a pile of bones. While you're here, like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. Trust me, it makes my existence way more worthwhile, and it helps the channel grow.
And with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Links and credits are in the show notes below. Till next time, keep dreaming big, and may your stories always have the spaces they deserve.